welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is really about shifting perspective. We're diving into an analysis of the architecture of coherence. It's a framework from Jamie Horrocks, PhD, and it radically reframes how we might understand autistic communication.
That's right. The core idea is moving away from seeing it as some kind of deficit.
Exactly. And instead, analyzing it as a conscious design, almost like meticulously built, and organized around frequency and rhythm.
It's a really overdue reframing, I think, and it starts with this powerful idea, tuning before sound.
Tuning before sound. Explain that a bit.
Well, the idea is that before we even produce speech, there's vibration. Always. Communication is presented as, well, older than language. You feel it first.
Like a frequency, a physical signal.
Yeah, exactly. A deep physical signal. Your body doesn't just think about connecting, it physically starts to tune.
So those subtle shifts.
Yeah.
Posture, maybe your heartbeat modulating slightly. That's the body aligning.
Precisely. Aligning to the anticipated sensory field of the other person.
Yeah.
It's physiological readiness.
Okay. And this whole architecture, this framework, it's structured by 4 core movements, right? Designed to get to coherence.
Yes, 4 movements. The author lays them out as attunement, where the body is basically a receiver. Then expression voice as gesture. Then environment thinking of the space itself as a nervous system.
Wow, okay. And the last one?
And finally, resonance. That's where connection happens through shared timing, shared rhythm.
That gives us a great blueprint. Let's start unpacking movement, Diane. Attunement. The body as receiver.
Right. And if we reject that deficit model, attunement stops looking like sensory disorder.
And becomes more like sensory sophistication.
Absolutely. For someone who's highly attuned, the self is like a very sensitive instrument. It's constantly reading the world as this intense signal.
Listening to everything. The static in a voice, a flickering light.
Yeah.
You mentioned the rhythm of a student's breath even.
Yes. Taking in a huge amount of data. Constantly.
And this intense intake, it must change how we understand emotion, right? The source talks about alexithymia.
The clinical term, often used for difficulty putting words to feelings, usually framed as an absence, a deficit.
But the experience described here is, well, the opposite.
Often, yes, it's overpresence. Emotion doesn't arrive as a neat little label. It's more like an overwhelming atmosphere, a complex chord landing all at once.
So the body knows it instantly, but the sheer complexity of it makes putting it into words impossible right away.
Yeah.
Separating the notes, so to speak.
Exactly. The challenge isn't a lack of feeling, it's the immediate full signal being almost too much for linear language in that moment.
That reframes empathy too, then. It's not just a thought process.
No, not just a thought or a moral stance. It's defined here as a deep physiological duet. It actually starts with synchrony. Nervous systems literally keeping time together.
Pulse to pulse.
Pulse to pulse.
Okay, so if that synchrony, that physical connection, is so vital, it explains why those really disembodied spaces, like a lot of online meetings, maybe, why they can feel so disorienting.
Right. The system is searching for that invisible sensory web, that shared rhythm that's just not there.
And it finds only its own reflection.
Yeah. There's no co-regulatory current to sort of carry the communication, so speaking feels like shouting into a vacuum or like trying to talk without gravity.
It's the absence of that sensory field that flattens everything. That makes a lot of sense. So if attunement is about receiving that deep signal, then movement 2, expression, must be about how that signal gets sent back out.
Right. And this is where Gestalt language processing, GLP, comes in. And we need to be really clear here. The source presents GLP as design, not some kind of delay.
Okay. So Gestalt processors acquire language in whole chunks. Gestalts, not word by word.
Exactly. And that completely changes how sentence structure works for them.
So instead of linear sentences, it's more like the author calls them constellations.
Yeah.
How do we, as listeners, maybe avoid just hearing that as repetition or scripting?
Well, we have to adjust how we listen. Think poetry versus prose. Prose moves step by step. Poetry uses these condensed images, right? Meaning is in the whole image, the context. With GLP, meaning isn't just in the single line. It's in the pattern that emerges when you kind of stand back and see the whole structure. It's just an alternative fluency, built from pattern and reprise.
So when a Gestalt processor speaks, they're pulling up these pre-existing phrases, and each phrase carries the memory, the feeling of its original context.
Yes. The meaning is accreted, it builds up, it's not constructed fresh each time.
Like layering meaning. The truth comes in waves, maybe, returning to points until the picture is clear.
That's a great way to put it. It's tidal, not linear. The author even describes their own writing, like a book made of reverberation, not traditional planning.
And this is where art and metaphor become really crucial, isn't it? Not just decoration, but actual necessities.
They are necessities. They become the native languages of effect for many autistic Gestalt processors, the tools for orchestration.
Orchestration, I like that.
Yeah, because if the truth arrives as this feeling chord, you have to express it through image and rhythm. You can't just decode it into a definition easily.
So syntax becomes melody, image becomes rhythm.
And when that clicks, expression isn't just translation anymore, it is presence. Coherence happens when the phrase meets recognition, in shared attention.
That idea of shared attention, that sensory matching, it leads us right into movement 3, environment, the architecture of safety.
Yes, and this movement is built on something non-negotiable. The environment regulates before the person does.
The environment regulates first.
The source describes a classroom, or really any shared space, not as neutral ground, but as a living nervous system. It's communicating constantly through sound, texture, light, even relational tone.
So when someone, say a teacher, is arranging chairs or clearing clutter or dimming harsh lights, they're not just decorating, they're actually regulating the collective nervous system.
Exactly. Inclusion becomes about physical design, not just behavior management or control.
Because the environment signals are actual input, right? The hum of the HVAC, the flickering light, that busy carpet pattern.
They aren't just background noise. Not at all. They are constant signals the nervous system has to process. And if your system is constantly fighting the environment just to exist,
Cognitive noise goes way up. Presence becomes impossible.
right, you're exhausted before you even start trying to connect or learn.
The source mentions the flipped classroom model here as an act of care.
Yeah, it's presented as a deliberate design choice. When you front-load the structure, maybe post materials in quiet digital archives, you allow people to engage with the core stuff asynchronously.
So it reduces the cognitive noise needed just to decode the task.
It drastically reduces it. So the system is calmer when you actually come together in person. It frees up that real-time presence for actual connection, deeper discussion, instead of just trying to figure out what's going on.
This brings up a really important point about how we view distress. The source references the power threat meaning framework. Can you remind us what that challenge is?
Sure. So traditional assessment often asks, what's wrong with you? Diagnosis focused.
Right.
This framework flips the script. It asks, what has happened to you? Or maybe, what information is the environment sending that your system just cannot hold right now?
So if you see someone struggling in outburst, withdrawal. The first question isn't diagnosis, it's dialogue.
Exactly. Their reaction, their distress is seen as information. It's an expression of what the environment or the situation has failed to adequately hold or support.
When we start thinking of our spaces as ecologies, we take responsibility for that holding. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Learning can't happen until the body feels safe, trusts its surroundings.
Precisely.
Okay, let's move to the final movement. Movement 4. Resonance. This sounds like the goal state. Co-regulation as shared humanity.
It is. Resonance is defined as that moment where understanding clicks through shared timing, through coherence, even if the words aren't perfect or even necessary sometimes.
And this connection is deeply biological.
Profoundly biological. The source mentions research on dancers, how their bodies actually synchronize rhythmically. Oxytocin surges between them. It's like this molecular chorus of trust built purely on timing.
Wow. Okay, that leads to a really critical distinction. One with huge implications for education, therapy, everywhere, really. The difference between calm and compliance.
Yes, this is crucial. Calm is the presence of rhythm. It's harmony. It's synchrony.
Whereas compliance...
Compliance is often just silence mistaken for peace. Many behavior systems, unfortunately, measure success by quietness. They suppress movement, suppress visible affect.
So it's stillness that's enforced, but there's no actual synchrony achieved underneath.
None at all. It can look peaceful, but the internal state might be anything but.
So if compliance is just enforced silence, then co-regulation must be something totally different. It's defined as relational praxis, not an intervention, not control.
Right. It's not something you do to someone.
So how do you practice it? How do you enact co-regulation?
It starts by seeking pulse. If a space feels distressed, you don't start barking commands or launching into complex explanations. You first modulate your own tone, slow your own breath.
You offer presence without possession.
Beautifully put, yes. You offer your own regulated rhythm into the shared space. It's an invitation to synchronize.
So the aim isn't to take over the other person's system, but to offer a clear, calm signal that their system can tune into if it chooses.
That's the ethic behind it. And it teaches us something profound. The nervous system isn't private property. It's actually communal infrastructure.
Communal infrastructure.
Yeah. My nervous system is linked to yours the moment we share space. This whole approach resists that sort of instrumental logic of control. It teaches that what really heals, what allows connection, is synchrony. That slow, rhythmic act of just being with.
This has been quite a journey through these 4 movements, a real paradigm shift. When we put it all together, what's the big synthesis?
I think it's the deep discovery that thinking, feeling, learning, they're all fundamentally acts of attunement. The whole GLP process, for example, with its looping and layering, it's not presented as a struggle to communicate. It's actually a highly sophisticated method for achieving coherence, especially when truth doesn't arrive like a neat argument, but like a complex whole chord of feeling and meaning.
So the autistic mind, in this view, is composing understanding, layering thought like harmony, not necessarily hierarchy. It's an act of design.
It's absolutely presented as an act of design.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the final thought to leave you with. We're never just singular systems, are we? We're more like symphonies, waiting to be tuned. The real work is symphonic.
So consider this in your own life, your own environments. What quiet music may be, what specific rhythm or sensory signal do you need to listen for, really listen for to find your own coherence.
And what happens when a community, a workplace, a family ignores that fundamental bodily need for synchronous rhythm? What gets lost in the silence that isn't peace?